Howdy, boys and girls, and welcome back to the Carla and Crappy Show. This is week 12, I think.
13, I
13?
think.
Oh, see, okay. Well, when we take weeks off, this is what happens.
Yeah.
We did take a week off last week because, frankly, the games weren't all that. There wasn't a whole lot going on. Fortunately, that is not necessarily the case this week. We have a bunch of stuff, including our traditional four, and maybe a mention of a fifth that is of note for more personal reasons. And before we begin, Carla, I want to explain something from this point. Given my personal college football circumstances and the fact that we're at the point of the season we are, there's a danger that my picks from here on out will be governed more by football logic than actual logic.
Okay.
Football, the best example of football logic, I posted this on my personal blog a few days before the national championship game between Ohio State and Florida several years ago. Football logic says, football logic looks at the weather forecast in Pittsburgh and say, ooh, it's going to snow on the day that the game is played, and that's good for Ohio State. And regular logic says that doesn't make any sense. The game isn't being played in Pittsburgh; it's playing indoors in Arizona. And football logic says, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Ohio State's a cold weather team. This is going to be awesome.
There's a bad beer brand that has that same kind of philosophy in their commercials, right?
I know. Yeah.
It's only stupid if it doesn't work. Yeah.
Right.
I get it. Okay.
So I offer that disclaimer for the rest of the season, at least until we get past the conference championship games. That my picks may have something to do with football logic rather than actual logic. But I will try. I will make an honest effort to analyze games as we have and make a pick that makes sense. And I think the first one that we're going to talk about, number 12 Texas A&M at number 22 LSU. I think I'll be able to do that. LSU is favored by 4.5 points at home. Carla, what do you think?
It's interesting that LSU is favored, because to me, this is a really evenly matched game. Really, both teams have really good offenses. Texas A&M especially, they're third behind only Baylor and Oregon, and those are two pretty spectacular offenses. So the big question here is which defense can really kind of step up and stop the other team. To me, doing some research, on paper, LSU is the better defense. They are ranked number 24 in total defense in the country, whereas Texas A&M is all the way down at 106. So on paper, LSU is the better defense, but for those of us that saw some games last week, even though we didn't have a show, or I guess it was a couple weeks ago now, LSU, when did LSU play Alabama? It was a couple weeks ago now.
2 weeks ago.
LSU's defense kind of melted down against Alabama, which is a concern against a good offense. Now, not that Alabama doesn't have a good offense, but this is at an entirely different level than Alabama. Alabama is a very strategic offense. Texas A&M is, a flashy, big play offense.
Let it fly.
Yeah, and if LSU has another breakdown like they had against Alabama, the game's over. So for that reason, I'm going to lean Texas A&M in this game. Even though they're playing on the road, if LSU's defense can stop Johnny, they've got a legitimate shot to win this game, but I'm not sure they can. So that's why I'm going to go A&M.
I had similar thoughts, and like you, my thoughts are based on watching most of the Alabama LSU game. Similar situation, but what I saw happen to LSU's offense when Bama cranked up the pressure in the third quarter, the term you use, meltdown, is absolutely right. And given that A&M's offense is better, far more prolific than Alabama's is. I think A&M wins this game and could end up really hammering LSU. If they're a quick score or two, maybe at the beginning of the second half, and LSU folds like they did against Alabama, and
Right.
that actually could get ugly. And it's odd in any circumstances to think about LSU. I think that would be a fourth loss for the season, and that's weird. It doesn't happen very often, but
Right.
very much a possibility on Saturday. Next up, we have number 17 Arizona State at number 14 UCLA in the Rose Bowl, which is a game I hope to be talking about later on in the season. UCLA is favored. There was a range by like 1.5 to 2.5 points, which means Vegas doesn't have any idea what to do with this game. Carla, you do?
Not really. The fact that line is that close, it is that doesn't help me at all, really. Because I mean, you look, these are essentially mirror image teams playing each other. I mean, they could not be even any more evenly matched. And with so much on the line too, which is kind of crazy in and of itself. That this game, if Arizona State wins, they win the Pac-12 South. Period. Game over. It's done. If UCLA wins this game, then we get into kind of all these crazy things of who beats whom next week to win the Pac-12 South, because any one of Arizona State, UCLA, or USC could win at that point. So for entertainment's sake, you kind of want to lean UCLA just because it would add some intrigue to the last week of the regular season. Some comparisons. I mean, they really are pretty evenly matched.
Yeah.
UCLA's 2 losses are to Oregon and Stanford. Arizona State's 2 losses are to Stanford. And Notre Dame, which is kind of a marginal loss now with what's happened in Notre Dame. But, I mean, that's still not a terrible loss.
Sure.
Both teams are allowing about 24 points per game. Offensively, it's kind of a wash. Arizona State's got a little bit more of an offensive scoring ability. 2 things worth noting here. ASU's defense has been playing really, really well in the last 5 games. But they didn't look impressive at all offensively against Utah and Oregon State, which are their last 2 games. Yes, they won. Their defense held them in those games, but they only beat Utah by a point, which I say that, but that's the same Utah team that beat Stanford, so, take that for what it's worth.
Sure.
But, gosh, UCLA's been a lot of fun to watch the last couple weeks. I love what they're doing with Miles Jack. I mean, how can you not? Sure, let's let a linebacker play offense and see what happens.
Yeah,
and it's been the most entertaining thing to see. It's really kind of crazy what they're doing with him. It's at UCLA. It's an earlier game for West Coast time, anyways. It's gonna be like a 5 o'clock start, I think, out there. What the heck? I think UCLA wins. Why not? I think both teams have a shot, and I like the UCLA offense, and they're playing at home. So I'll go UCLA.
The thing with the position change is actually an interesting thing, because that is the kind of goofy thing that can spark a team. The last year when whichever board was playing fullback, starting the season playing fullback, moved to middle linebacker just before the Indiana game. I'm talking about Ohio State, of course. You guys knew that already.
Because who else would you be talking about, really?
But that was an emotional lift for a defense that had really struggled and started to play better. And plus he led the team in tackles from that point on for the rest of the season. So it's actually a legit thing. I'm going to go with you as well. I think I'm going to base that on recent experience. And here is kind of a brief touch of football logic. I just think it would be more fun, because then you've got UCLA in the mix for the Pac whatever South, and suddenly. That opens a door for a SC team that is obviously playing really well,
Yes.
You get that jumped into the mix, and then you've got 3 teams, and that could be a fun last couple of weeks of the season out there on the West Coast. Next up, we have number 8 Missouri at number 24 Ole Miss. Missouri is favored, but only by 3. You and I have actually talked a lot about Ole Miss games at different points this season, and I think you have the same impression I do, that that's a legit good team that is hosting the Tigers on Saturday. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, Ole Miss's record, like we've talked about this multiple times now, their record is really deceiving. Their 3 losses are to Alabama, Auburn, and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I mean, and they almost beat Texas A&M, and they did beat LSU. So, I mean, that is a deceivingly good Ole Miss team. They've won 4 in a row. It started with LSU, but their last 3 wins have been over Idaho, Arkansas, and Troy.
That sounds like a good SEC schedule right there.
Yeah, Well, what was it?
Yeah.
Texas A&M released their schedule today. Their out of conference schedule for the next 2 years or something like that.
I did not see how much fun is that.
Louisiana Monroe is on there.
Okay.
SEC teams don't need it apparently, but
Right.
okay,
Right.
That's a different discussion for a different day. But I will say that Ole Miss, they've played essentially 3 cupcakes in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Really, this is kind of the first legitimate game they've played in a month since the LSU game, and I think that might hurt them just a bit in this game, that they haven't had to prepare as much. They haven't seen the speed that they're going to see from Missouri. A good thing for Missouri, actually there's a good thing for both teams, is that both teams are getting a significant piece of their offense back. James Franklin is starting for Missouri, which is huge.
Yeah.
That is huge. But Ole Miss gets Jeff Scott back. And we all remember what Jeff Scott did here in Nashville. So, 2 really big pieces back. Missouri coming in off a bye, and they have Texas A&M next week. They've got to win both to win the SEC East. I think Mizzou does it. I think James Franklin. If oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Backup quarterback, Missouri. I'm going to hate myself later because I know this because I covered this. Matty Mock, I covered in high school. That's the reason why it was going to drive me crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was a good prep quarterback, and Matty Mock, we kind of had ifs about when he was in high school. He had the talent, but could he harness that talent into becoming a quarterback? And he showed to us the last couple weeks that he could. If Matty Mock was leading this team into Mississippi, I think Ole Miss wins the game. The fact that James Franklin is coming back provides that leadership that I think Missouri needs to win. Even if he's not at 100%, and even if he has to share some time, I think that boost of having him back under center is really going to lift that team. It's going to be a good game. I think that might be one of the better games of the entire weekend. But I'm going to say Missouri wins and makes next weekend really interesting. See, football logic. Makes next weekend really interesting against Texas A&M.
Okay, I'm going to go for football logic plus immediate gratification, and hope that we get a really interesting game on Saturday. I wonder about the potential for Franklin having lost a couple games because of the injury, a bye week. Yes, these are huge games for Missouri, but I wonder about that stuff equaling rust rather than momentum.
Yeah.
And I have been continually impressed with Ole Miss. Certainly, I'm not in a position to make fun of anybody playing cupcakes. Although in November, that's kind of rough. But I'm gonna say I'm gonna pick Ole Miss in this one.
Okay.
I think that's and not too much of a stretch even for football logic. I don't think playing at home. That is something. If Missouri doesn't get a good start, Ole Miss could, and I think will, beat the Tigers. And then we have what will be my biggest leap of football logic, perhaps for the rest of the regular season. Number 4 Baylor at number 10 Oklahoma State, an Oklahoma State team that I've been very disappointed with this season. Hopefully they can redeem themselves maybe on Saturday. But Carla, what do you think about this one?
I think the only thing we really need to talk about in this game is what happened last week. So after the miracle of Auburn,
yes,
and I'm sure everybody that's watching this has at least seen that 47,000 times at this point. So that game led directly into Baylor Texas Tech, and so we came off of the high of the Auburn winning with less than a minute to play on a miracle catch, flipped over to Baylor Texas Tech, and suddenly Texas Tech is up 2 touchdowns.
Yes, I might have been a little excited about that.
Well, so was I. Even though I don't have a rooting interest in this, I was like, whoa, what's happening to Baylor? Well, then we saw what happened to Baylor, which was absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
They came out flat, and by gosh, was that impressive. The way that they came back. I mean, it really was. If we had any doubt at all whether or not Baylor could come back from a deficit, we saw it last week, and it was emphatically stomped into the ground.
I wanted to cry.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand. I was really impressed.
Yes.
Really impressed.
Absolutely.
The one thing that you can hang your hat on is that the Oklahoma State defense is actually pretty good.
Yep.
But will they be able to stop the Baylor offense enough for their own offense, which has been iffy at times at best, a couple of points this season, against that stellar Baylor defense? Can they hold Baylor's offense low enough so that they can score enough points to win the game? I don't see that happening. I'm sorry. I think
Hell
Baylor
yes,
wins.
they can.
I think Baylor wins, and I think it could be just about as ugly as last week. I really do.
I think you're probably right, and that's as far as I'm going to go down that train of thought.
Okay, so sell me on Oklahoma State.
Things to hope for. Oklahoma State will find some offense despite having played 12 different quarterbacks at different points of the season. There's Baylor leaves half the team in Texas when they make the trip north. I'm really stretching here. Maybe the one thing I'd really have to hang my hat on is the fact that I don't think Baylor has won in the last 3 tries in Stillwater, and perhaps there will be some kind of mysterious mental block a la John Cooper versus Michigan in the 1990s. Not likely, granted, but that is what I'm hoping for, and that is why I am picking the Oklahoma State Cowboys to.
Well, they do have they do have the power of the elf. Tell me you saw that meme that was going around last night.
I did not see the elf.
The elf on the shelf.
Oh God. No,
yeah, somebody did it.
I'm going to find a picture of this. I will find a picture. It will appear in this video now. Okay, there's the elf.
Yeah, elf on shelf. It's. Thank you, college football. I mean, really, thank you, college football. It's just been, especially when the top 4 teams, three of the top 4 teams are playing cupcakes this week, including your Buckeyes. I'm sorry,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Indiana, but
I hope Ohio State scores about 95 points. Not that it'll matter.
They better. I mean, and Alabama's playing Chattanooga, and Florida State's playing
Idaho. Is that a college?
Idaho.
Is Chattanooga? That's a college. Is it?
Chattanooga, yes, it is. It's actually, it's not a high school. Okay. It's actually a branch of UT.
Okay.
UT Chattanooga, but now they just go by Chattanooga. Quick, if you can name the mascot of Idaho, go.
The Vandals.
Yes. Not too many people know that.
I'm a freak. And unfortunately, that means so are you. There is one other thing we wanted to mention, and Carla, this will be mostly you, but I did want to bring it up because he's a very cool guy and obviously means a lot to folks in Pittsburgh, particularly those who are associated with Rebel March University. This will be Joe Walton's final game as head coach of the Colonials. I'm going to blank on who they're playing. We know that they're not going to make the postseason, so this weekend will be the last one. But just real quick, Carla, what has Joe Walton done for RMU as far as the football program?
That's a loaded question. How much time do we have? Can I talk for half an hour?
I did say quickly, but
yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean he was kind of the start of the whole moving Robert Morris, not just as a athletic program, but even as an institution, and starting to put them on the map. It was a big deal when he was hired, obviously because of his pedigree and coming from the NFL. It was a huge name, very unlikely hire to start a small school football program. While he's been there in 20, this is his 20th season. In 20 years, he's won 2 national championships. Back when they still did the mid-major poll. At that level,
that's absolutely legit thing, yeah.
And I was there for both of those years. That was the '99 season and the 2000 season, and that was when I was starting there. So it was a really, really big deal. He was widely revered on campus, managed to build that program to the point that they could build a football stadium on campus. Because yes, for the beginning of the program, I say we because I went there. I can say we.
Absolutely.
We played at Moon. We played at Moon High School. And so the atmosphere there was about as good as an away high school football game, really. Yeah. Because nobody went, because it was, so he overcame that, got the stadium on campus. I mean, a game day at Robert Morris now, I don't even recognize it. It's incredible, the atmosphere and the tailgate alley, and the students are there, and it's really great. And, to see the school go from small college to university to now, the NEC has it, and he probably is part of the reason why the NEC now has an automatic bid into the FCS playoffs. I'm not going to lie, he was probably right behind that movement. Yes, there's been a lot of good talent coming out of the NEC. Miles Austin, to name a few. Hank Fraley.
I've heard of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you've definitely heard of Hank Fraley.
Yes.
So it's he does mean a lot. And I'm happy that Banaszak's going to be taking over. I think that was kind of a nice move to hire him in advance and have him work with Joe. But Penn State had, and I hesitate to bring this up, but Penn State had Joe Pa, and we sometimes called Joe Wah. Because he had that same kind of demeanor, that fatherly figure around the team. Sure. Really great guy, great person, and always a pleasure to deal with, win or loss after the game. So he'll be missed. I hope he's still around occasionally on campus, because he really did a lot to change that university, and we owe him a lot as alums. So go win the last one for him, would you? Since you messed up last week and lost the Sacred Heart.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? It is a very cool story, and a big deal in Pittsburgh, for people who are just sort of observers of the Robert Morris stuff. Absolutely class guy, and has meant a lot for the community that I work in, and a lot of people went to school in, and all that stuff. So, good luck, Coach Walton. Carla, good luck with your picks this week.
I guess same to you, but
I'm going to need more luck than you will.
Yeah, especially with Oklahoma State. Yeah, sorry about that.
Go Cowboys.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching. See ya.
Bye.